So we're at the top of the hour. I'll go ahead and get started. My name is Brooke Gooding. I'm the Vice President at LandGate for real estate over here. Today, we're going to be discussing battery storage and EV charging. We have special guest Chip Bubella, owner of Bubella Real Estate out of Texas. He's done quite a few battery storage deals, so we're going to pick his brain today on the deals that he's done and what tips and tricks he has for us all. And then at the end of the webinar, we will be discussing EV charging. We're very excited. We just released our EV charging data, and our Senior Vice President of Product, Ben McBride, will be sharing that with us at the end of today's webinar. So to begin, I wanted to introduce you all into a little bit about what LandGate is and what battery storage is, and then we'll interview Chip and then get to the EV charging. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with LandGate, LandGate is a data analytics company. We have over 300 different data sets in solar, wind, carbon, and minerals. And with those data sets, what we do is we actually value every parcel in the United States for how much you could get on a solar lease, a wind lease, a mineral deal, etc. And on top of that, we're also a competitive marketplace, because we don't just work with agents and landowners. We have a whole nother team, our energy team, who works with solar developers, wind developers, institutional investors. So one of the best things you can do on LandGate is actually to list your client's land on LandGate, because these solar developers and institutional investors, they come to LandGate for our data. They run economics where they're going to build their next solar farm, for instance. But they also come to LandGate for the leads. They come for you guys. It is so much easier to work with a real estate agent who's representing a landowner and has built that trust, and they're raising their hand saying they're interested in receiving a purchase offer for battery storage, a solar lease offer, whatever the case is. And everyone listing on LandGate, absolutely free. There is no catch in that. We don't get paid any commissions whatsoever. The deal is yours. So to begin, I wanted to show you all a little bit about what battery storage is. So what is energy storage? Energy storage is the capture of energy at one time for use at a later time to reduce the imbalances between energy demand and energy consumption. So in our nation, we have a goal to be emissions neutral by 2050. Well, right now, we do rely quite a bit on oil and gas, and solar and wind are only producing when there's sunshine or when it's windy, and it's not always sunny and it's not always windy. So what they do to combat that is they actually build battery storage facilities. So a battery storage facility essentially looks like little shipping containers like this. And they're lithium batteries that hold energy. So that way, during high times, they can still give us electricity, essentially, or when it's cloudy out, etc., to make sure that we don't have brownouts and blackouts. And if we're truly going to be emissions neutral by 2050 in our nation, they're actually going to have to build 200 times the amount of battery storage facilities we have today. That means a lot of land deals are going to be done for battery storage in the future. And the thing is that if you haven't done a solar deal, a battery storage deal, you soon will. And honestly, you probably have and just don't know it. Because if somebody works for a developer that's $1 billion backed company, but the landowner doesn't know and the agent doesn't know, they're not going to willingly come out and tell them that. They're going to try and get the land for a deal. So being knowledgeable about what's going on, what makes a battery storage facility undesirable, is good for you to know, to make sure you're not leaving money on the table. Now, battery storage facilities don't always have to be ugly. So you can negotiate that they actually have some landscaping around it, look more like businesses, if you will, if you desire that to be next to your property. Now, here's an example of a battery storage listing on LandGate. These red lines are transmission lines and yellow dots are substations. For battery storage to be desirable, you want to be as close as possible to these substations and transmission lines. And typically a buyer will want to purchase 2 to 15 acres. So without further ado, the reason why we're all actually here is to hear from Chip Bubella, who's actually transacting these deals. And I'm sharing this picture because we met Chip a couple years ago at RLI San Antonio. And on the left, we have our president of LandGate, Craig Kaiser, and on the right, we have Chip. And honestly, I remember yelling at Chip, hey, Craig, and I was like, oh, you're not Craig. And folks were doing the same thing to Chip. So we did meet at RLI San Antonio. And at this conference, we had a panel. We had 4 solar developers up there and 1 agent, Casey Mock at the time. And Chip actually was in the audience taking notes at this panel discussion. And then fast forward a year later, we flipped the table. We had 4 agents, including Chip, and 1 solar developer. And Chip, a magic moment for me was when you went up there to talk, you actually had your notes from San Antonio, from that panel you saw with the developers. And you were just pointing out facts and the reasons why you got into renewables. So can you speak to how impactful that was and how that got you into renewable deals?
Absolutely. And so, by the way, also everybody kept calling me Craig while I was there. And you're the LandGate guy. I was like, no, I'm not the LandGate guy. I look like him, but that's not me. But yes, so like you said, I took the notes in that session, and I didn't really know what this was. It was kind of odd to me, being from Texas, we like our oil and gas, and I'm like, I don't know about this battery stuff. But anyways, I did see the potential of it. I read a lot, and I was reading the Economist magazine at the time too, and it was talking about how, like you said, Brooke, that the United States wants to be at 0 net emissions by 2050, and all the things that need to be done. And the lady that was up there when I was in San Antonio said we're at basically like 2% of the capacity we need to be at. So there's a whole lot of growth for solar to get to that where we need to be. And so when you say 2%, that means we got to grow 98%, which is a ton. So yes, get in the way, learn what this is, and figure it out. So that's what I did. And I had before I got to San Antonio, I turned down a listing from one of the a listing that I was working on because it had a transmission line going over it. It was dead dog ugly, and then it had also a substation on it. So, as a land broker, it's one of those things where like those kill deals, right? Nobody wants that. And so my seller wanted a lot of money. He wanted upwards to 35,000 an acre. I was like, there's no way I can get that for you. It's a transitional land piece. Yes, it's an ag. Yes, it's got proximity to I-10 to the interstate, but still, it's not transitioning to commercial yet. That's going to take some time to get that kind of money for that particular piece. So after when I was there taking my notes, the panelists said, battery storage 5 to 10 acres, anything next to a substation 5 to 10 acres, we're interested in that deal. So I wrote that down, and then I went home and I went and met with the seller that I turned down the listing and said, hey, I got something for us. I think we should try to go this angle, not commercial angle, and try to see what we can do as far as solar and battery for you. And that's what we did. And we ultimately struck a deal with the battery storage facility where he's potentially everything's signed, but they're in their feasibility study right now. But he's potentially going to make $150,000 a year off of 10 acres. So,
beautiful.
And then you have your escalation clause in there too. So we negotiate a 3% escalation clause every year, which is that'll obviously over time will go up in value.
Yes, sir. So when you were negotiating that, what did the offer look like when you got it?
They sent you a term sheet. So you start with the term sheet, and it basically says, hey, we're going to do a 3-year option. It'll be a 3 to 4 year, some of them are 5-year options. And so the first year we're going to pay you $20,000 option fee up front. Second year we're going to pay you $30,000, and the third year will be 40. And then after that, year 4 we got to do something, right? And so that's how that is. And so you get paid option fees up front, and then hopefully it gets developed. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to ask, is that per acre?
No, that's not per acre.
Okay.
That's just the option fee altogether. And then you get a per acre offer too. Once the project is developed or ERCOT puts it into their queue and they've got a project that's approved, then you can start getting paid your residuals on a per acre basis. So that's when that 10,000 per acre per year would kick in on the payments.
And did you ever think you would get that much for that listing?
No, and a matter of fact, Brooke, when we first got back, we had it on the market for about a year, and we had way lower offers, and it just wasn't as lucrative as we had wanted. And so we waited finally until we got something that was lucrative enough that we're willing to work with. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
So When you're doing these negotiations, what kind of team did you put together? Like, how much acreage did you need for the deal? What kind of things did you push back on during the negotiations?
Some things that we pushed. So I did hire, I for my client, I said, hey, we need to have a lawyer look over the lease. So once we had the term sheets down, we had the terms that we wanted. Then we say, yes, we're acceptable to this. Let's put a lease together. And once you get that lease, you send it to legal, and they'll go through and scrub it and tell you all the things that are good, bad, and some things you want to change and all this. So some of the things we changed were, the escalation clause. We weren't too comfortable with the escalation clause that they were offering. We also negotiated for them to pay for our legal team, so to get reimbursed for our legal expenses. And it was up to a certain amount there. I think we negotiated like $5,000, up to $5,000 in legal expenses. We negotiated, so they were wanting to do like a plus or minus. So it was like, hey, we're gonna do 5 to 15 acres. We're like, no, you're gonna do a minimum of 10. So we negotiated that, we don't want to do 15,000 at 5 acres. We want to at least get 10 acres into this project. So we negotiated that. There are some things as far as like cleanup and stuff like that, being bonnets. So when the project, if project goes south, we want all that cleaned up, right? We want to have our land back to where it was when this project came about. And also we negotiated so obviously if you're an ag and you're paying very little taxes because you're ag exempt, that property is going to change its use to, you're going to be taxed at the higher value. So we negotiated for the developer to have to pay that difference in taxes that our landowners have.
Very nice. You definitely hit a lot of great things. What was that?
Those are the high points.
Absolutely. Your landowner is definitely lucky to have you in their corner thinking of all those little things. Because a lot of times landowners, it's just like selling land, right? They don't know what they don't know. They might leave money on the table if they don't have representation. A landowner might not think about asking about those taxes, paying for the legal fees, things like that. And having you in their corner is just exceptional. Well done. Absolutely.
You learn as you go too. It's listening. It's having you guys also the huge resource was really key too. Being able to pick up the phone, talk to Craig. Craig talks to different people all the time, different developers. He sees different things, and so being able to have that network, that connection, and call people and say, hey, this is what I'm being offered. Is this like? And that's what I did when I was first getting offers. I was like, hey, does this look good? Is this a decent offer? No, we don't know. And so they're like, I try to get more. That's not a really good offer, So it was a good deal.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. No, we love working with you and answering all those questions. So thank you. So what every agent wants to know, how do they get paid?
How do you get paid? So that can get tricky sometimes. So when I first was doing these deals, I was asking for 5% override. Okay, and I told the solar people I want to get paid just like an oil and gas guy would get a 1% override on an oil and gas deal. So that's how I looked at it. I did have some pushback as far as they would say, well, the financing team doesn't want you to be in the lease, and I had to push back on that, and eventually did win that deal. So you do have to be hard-headed sometimes and say, listen, my landowner wants me to get paid. He wants me to be in this lease, and he does. He understood. He's like, I want you to be compensated for this. And so I had the lawyer. They put some language together for us to get put in the lease to make sure that I would get paid. And I'm happy to share that with anybody. Like it's right here, and if anybody has any questions or what that looks like, it just says that. I'll just kind of read this off to you briefly. It says the parties stipulate that the only real estate broker entitled to a commission in this transaction is Chip Rubella, and that from all the proceeds to be paid to the landowner pursuant to this agreement, notwithstanding any provision herein to the contrary, 5% shall be paid to the landowner by delivering said 5% to Chip Rubella, his heirs, and or assigns, and 95% shall be paid to the landowner by delivering 95% to the landowner, his heirs, or assigns. So it's in the lease that I get paid, and that's how it is.
Absolutely. And Trevor has a question. Did you use a specific attorney that you recommend?
Yeah, so I had worked. I went to a law firm that has different departments, and one that had reputation as far as battery and storage and all this. So it was a company out of Victoria, Texas, and I've done other stuff with them too, so I was familiar with them. And so they had an attorney that was on staff up in Lubbock, Texas, that helped me out negotiate this deal. That was basically in this field of working with solar and battery.
Absolutely. And it's always good to have a lawyer to look over that paperwork for sure.
Oh, yes, absolutely. They're definitely important.
Yes. So jumping into renewables, how has this helped you to leverage your existing network that you've worked with in the past or have currently?
So it gives you opportunity. So, I mean, if you're driving down the road, you see a transmission line or a substation, you get on your phone and look up who the property owner is. But a lot of times already, where you're at, a lot of people. If you've been in real estate for a while, people know who you are. They know you're in the land business. So clients of mine that maybe own 200 acres next to this, I'd pick up the phone and say, hey, this is Chip, how are you doing? Checking in with you. Hey, I just want to let you know that I've been working on some things. I just negotiated a solar deal, and I know you're not interested in selling, but you might have some opportunity to make some residual off your land through solar or battery, and I want to talk to you about that. Would that be something you'd be interested in? And it just opens up a conversation. Well, yeah, tell me more about this. And so there's been a couple clients that they haven't listed their land for sale, but we've listed it for lease for solar and battery. So, and then it makes you that expertise, because no other realtor is doing this kind of thing. It really differentiates you, and shows people that, hey, this guy's serious about his business. He's educated himself on what's going on. And especially when you go with the data, hey, we're at 2% capacity, 98%, we got to grow. You talk about the 0%, the zero net emissions by 2050. The data's there. They're talking about it. People see it, and being able to get in front of it, I think, is key, and not waiting if you wait to get into it, then you're not the expert. The expert is jumping ahead of it and finding out what's going on, where things are headed.
Absolutely. And with that, and you kind of hit on this, on it being a value add for folks not wanting to sell their land, essentially, and just keeping that relationship going. And may I ask, what offers have you been getting lately?
So one particular deal where I was kind of talking about this 200 acres, he has a beautiful ranch, a beautiful home, and he doesn't want this battery storage. So we listed it for solar and battery, but just to kind of see what kind of offers we were going to get. And they're getting so hot and heavy on it. Last week I got as high as 40,000 an acre for 15 acres.
Very nice.
The land's probably worth 15, really. But to get 40 an acre, that gets enticing, right? You're like, I'm gonna have to say yes pretty soon.
That's absolutely fair.
You're
And
gonna make me sell price,
yes, absolutely. And Chip, have you ever negotiated a battery storage deal and a crypto mining deal together?
Yes, don't do it.
Okay.
Let me tell you a story. So I'm working on this deal, and we're trying to so he's got both transmission line and substation. So the battery obviously wants to be next to the substation, and the solar doesn't need to be next to the substation, but they ultimately are eventually going to need to be next to the substation. So we've got both. So we want to put both battery and solar, but not every company does both, right? So we were negotiating with one company that does battery and one company that does solar. Well, this particular company that we negotiated with on battery, in their lease, they put battery and/or crypto facility. Okay. It kind of messes things up for my client who wants to do solar too. So this is a learning curve for me too. So when you have battery storage and/or crypto in the lease, okay, because they got a 3-year option, right? And I'm trying to negotiate with the solar company. Well, solar's like, man, if they do crypto, they're going to suck all the energy out of this line, and that's going to make this very difficult for us to be able to even use this line. It's going to be at full capacity. It won't be able to handle both. And so when you're doing those things, if it's battery, make sure it's battery, and don't make sure that they can do and/or crypto facility, because crypto sucks out of their high capacity, and it can drain the line, and it affects the ability to do a solar farm.
Gotcha. And you're going to get paid a ton more if you can get that battery storage facility and then lease out 100 acres at, let's say, $800 an acre for a solar farm, rather than just doing that one portion for battery storage.
Yeah, so I'm actually negotiating an amendment to that existing lease for the battery and crypto, and I think we're gonna be able to work it out to where it's gonna be specifically battery.
Very nice.
the solar companies comfortable with moving forward with the lease. So
That's awesome. Congratulations. And how has listed properties on LandGate affected your business?
you get offers. So it's crazy. I was one deal. I called the gentleman. I was like, "Hey, you don't have the substation. The substation across the road, but you got the transmission line." I said, let's list your property. We'll probably get offers for both, but let's see what happens. I mean, it would 2 days. It was at 9 o'clock at night. I get a text message from a battery developer. "Hey, I saw your deal on LandGate. Can you talk tomorrow?" And he actually asked, "Do you have any offers already?" I mean, they were so hot and heavy on it. And that's the guy that's already at a 40 an acre offering. So
Nice. Is that the highest offer you've gotten so far?
yeah, so far. I mean, at the beginning of this, batteries weren't paying much over like 5 an acre, and it's gotten real high lately.
Very nice. And that's in Texas specifically. Okay.
Yes.
Now, Chip, what advice would you give to any agents on the line today?
Take some time, get on LandGate, watch some webinars, get involved, take the RLI course. I still need to take that course, by the way. It's in August. I'm going to sign up for that one. But get involved in the energy market, learn about it. It's huge. We all know that we have somewhat of an energy crisis here in Texas too, with all the things that are going on, all the growth that we have, and just jump in there and get dirty and figure it out. Is all I can say. Just do it like Nike.
Yes, absolutely. And does anybody have any questions for Chip while we have him on here? Please go ahead and put them in the chat if you do, specifically about negotiating deals or anything you'd like to know.
Chip, what were the legal fees for this deal? Did you use a specific? Okay, I kind of answered it. But yeah, the legal fees were, I believe the last one I did was it was like $4,600. So I would expect about 5,000.
Very nice.
How did you think revenue streams from involved from years?
And Ben, I actually might call on you for this one. How do you think the revenue streams for BESS evolve in the coming years in the US? Also, how will different similar to EU and APAC? Would you have any expertise on that?
Well, I can't say compare it to the EU very well, but as far as like project, if you're the project owner developing these projects, I mean, I would imagine number one, it's going to be very location based, right? That's kind of what we're talking about. So, some parcels are going to be in particular locations that relieve the grid congestion and have a much larger, revenue stream opportunity in a particular spot than maybe another one. So basically, I think in the early stage, those spots are going to be right now. The grid can be really congested in certain areas, right? And so those areas people are going to want to be there first. So they're going to want to pay, a lot of money to be in those locations first, because they know there's not going to be transmission upgrades that relieve that for a long time. So if they're, the battery energy storage project that gets that location, you can probably have a lot of confidence in your revenue stream for a long time from that particular project. But as more and more of those, low hanging, the best sites or the low hanging fruit kind of get picked up, they're going to need to build them in more unique locations, maybe of lower value, and that aren't as good for the actual project economics, and kind of, reducing their ability to offer more out of that revenue stream to, like, say, a landowner. But that being said, I mean, incentives are also very strong right now with IRA, the federal, federal incentives and state incentives that are in certain locations. So, like, in terms of longevity, I'm sure there's going to be more, and it doesn't sound like they're going away. But and that obviously, is a big piece of this in terms of being able to get the projects off the ground and in turn, get those leases out to landowners. So I'm not sure if that really answers the question, but I think, yeah, they'll be strong for a long time. And just right now that everyone's looking for the best spots, the best locations first, and so they're going to be really hungry for those.
Thank you, Ben. And Chip, thank you so much today. If anybody wants to reach out to Chip, we have his contact information here. He has been such a generous networker. I mean, you guys saw that Trevor's on the line. They met at RLI, and Chip is more than willing to network with you guys. So Chip, thank you so much for your time today. Before we leave, I'm going to jump into EV charging. So electrical vehicle charging stations. Every major automaker is creating an electrical vehicle today. And in the United States, there's 120,000 gas stations in the United States. And it's the goal to have 50% of the automobiles to be electric by 2050. So with the gas stations, we're going to need a ton of electrical vehicle charging stations. They take much smaller portions of land. I mean, think of a gas station, a half an acre, for instance. Or another thing you can think of where EV charging stations are going to go is going to be movie theaters, malls, shopping centers, places where people can go ahead and plug in their car while they go eat, while they go shop, etc. So with the land, what we're finding right now is that developers who want to create EV charging stations that are more like gas station locations, they're looking literally what you would look for a gas station off a highway exit, preferably, if possible, substations and transmission lines nearby. They're not leasing the land so far that I've seen. Right now, they're really looking to purchase the land. But if you have land in an area like that, the value is very high with our nation's initiatives to get to 50% of the cars being electric. So that can add a ton of value. With needing to be next to infrastructure, and from what I've seen, if you have 2 chargers in a location, you don't need a lot of high, you just need distribution lines. You don't necessarily need transmission lines and substations. If you're trying to build a facility that's 6 chargers or more, you're probably going to need infrastructure, substations, transmission lines, things like that. So Ben, I will let you take it away. I will stop sharing my screen here. And let you share this. Jordan, could you help me take this down? It's not a lot. Thank you, Jordan. Ben, go ahead.
No problem.
Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, so I was just going to jump on and share a little bit of the new EV charging data that we have put up on LandGate. Right, kind of, again, tools meant to, give you an idea of the suitability of a given parcel in a given location, as well as, if you're a developer or somebody of that sort, find these high value locations and these landowners that, really are excited and interested to talk to them and getting something going on their property. So here, I'm showing a view of our what we call power data in our new EV charging section. This is the national view, so you can kind of get an idea of the coverage. So we've gone out here and got the data mapping out where all the different electric vehicle charging stations are currently in the U.S., as well as ones that are in development or being built as we speak, as well as all the major roads, highways, major road exit ramps, and then these 2 down here are the disadvantaged communities and the tribal reservations, which basically are alluding to areas of where you get higher incentives than others, right? And so ultimately, we're going to continue to build these out, but these layers show, basically where these features exist and why your parcel may or may not be, relatively more valuable than the next. So I'll go ahead and jump in here to a closer view. So here you can kind of see, right, we got a major road exit here. We got our transmission lines, our distribution lines, as well as EV corridors. And so an EV corridor is designated by the Federal Highway Administration, where they're actually providing, significant incentives, like up to 80% of project costs for the development of these new EV chargers. Right, the idea there is building a national network of EV chargers, and so they want to make sure that they are spaced out and across the country, and somebody in an EV has the ability to charge up and get across without any issue there. And so there's a lot of places around the country where they're still waiting for those chargers to come in, and developers are willing to pay a lot to get those sites. Right, and so kind of, again, very similar to battery storage or solar or wind. You'd want to at least be near infrastructure. You don't have to be right on the substation, but you're going to probably want to be near it, as well as have available capacity on there to pull load off of the grid of the appropriate amount. EV chargers can, depending on how many you have, obviously, and what type. If you're, one of the high capacity fast chargers, and say you have a fleet, right? That's a significant pull off the grid, and so you're just going to want to make sure you're siting and picking locations that meet the criteria of the project. And so here, right, this is basically just a view of some of those map layers. You can kind of see more in the key here, as well as over here on the left. In addition, right, there's obviously the ability, if you're searching for these parcels, to go ahead and say, hey, I want to find a parcel, right, in a parcel or a listing that's in a EV corridor, right, on a major road near the exit. If you wanted to be in one of these areas that give better incentives from federal funding, you can check these boxes, right? So I went ahead and already did the search here in California and found about 1,900 parcels here, right? So pretty powerful tool to kind of find these locations and these listings on LandGate, as well as see the suitability of a site in comparison to others, to kind of properly understand your options as a landowner and what other opportunities might be sitting there. So yeah, I think as far as map layers, happy to answer any questions about it, or additional tools that are coming soon. This is what we have on our first release, but you'll be seeing some more exciting tools here soon.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ben. And thank you everyone today for attending. If you do have any questions, please register on landgate.com, or you have Chip's information from earlier if you want to reach out to Chip. But we're here for you guys as a resource. Feel free to reach out anytime.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Chip. Really appreciate you joining today. And thank you so much, Ben. We will talk to you all later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.